Welcome back to Dragon Ball Dissection December. It's Christmas Day, which means we get to enjoy our beloved Christmas traditions. Gathering around the skin pods of our kidnapped friends, ripping them off the ceilings, and making our escape through the Christmas head sphincter. It's just like when I was a kid. It's part 25 on the 25th part of this month. Boo has absorbed Vegito, but for some reason he hasn't transformed. That's because Vegito's crazy reckless force field idea worked. He decides to lower the force field to look for Boo's victims. Again, I have to say I consider that an unnecessary risk. What makes him think he won't immediately get absorbed when he lowers it? That seems far more likely to happen than what actually does, that he immediately splits back into Goku and Vegeta. Goku postulates that it's the bad air in there that canceled the combination, and that is the only explanation I will be discussing today. This actually doesn't bother me as much as it seems to bother other people. Oh, it's definitely lazy as all get out, but given how much weirdness there is with Boo, I find it plausible that there could be something about his magic that works against Kaioshin magic. In fact, if I wanted to be really generous, I could argue that actually makes sense, given what we're about to find out about Majin Boo's composition. And at the end of the day, I really don't want Vegito to stick around. I doubt even the people who really like Vegito would have preferred him over Goku and Vegeta. The satisfaction in the Potara being permanent would have been Vegeta choosing it, not in the story coming up with a way out of it. Of course, we can't have nice things, so even though the conflict is far from over, Vegeta immediately starts complaining again about the idea of being one with Goku and destroys his earring. As they're useless individually, Goku breaks his too. Vegeta's just gonna Vegeta, and part of being Vegeta is learning the same lesson over and over and over again. I'd certainly be relieved if I didn't have to stay combined forever, but, a little foresight would be nice. Only a few steps away, Goku and Vegeta find their friends and family. They have a surprisingly detailed conversation about how Goten and Trunks are separated. Vegeta thinks they were likewise pulled apart by being absorbed, but Goku points out that Boo had fusion traits for a while. He concludes that fusion will in fact work inside Majin Boo. That very much sounds like it's setting up that fusion will be used while characters are inside of Majin Boo, but nothing like that ever happens. I was going to complain about it on the basis of an idea once again going nowhere, but then it hit me exactly what this was. It's the same reason I went out of my way a couple of minutes ago to specify that I was not going to be discussing the retcon to the Potara earrings that Dragon Ball Super has introduced in recent years. I wholeheartedly believe Toriyama wrote this entire conversation just so people couldn't complain about an inconsistency that doesn't actually exist. See, he's making it clear that he knows Gotenks worked inside Boo earlier. He didn't forget. Fusion and Potara are two separate things and work according to two separate rules. I can definitely relate to the fear that pedantic busybodies are gonna try to gotcha me by claiming I just forgot. I'm actually a little embarrassed to bring that up because just looked at where we are right now. Pointing out problems in the writing is kind of my job, and I can't deny that I am a pedantic busybody who frequently believes that Toriyama just forgot all kinds of things. I have said multiple times that I can accept seemingly contradictory ideas as long as the story addresses them. That's something Toriyama has consistently failed to do in this arc, but he sure does it here, and boy is it awkward. I'm certainly not backtracking on that, but there are more natural ways to include these things in the story. Last month I brought up how the protections of God's temple are seemingly forgotten, with people like Bluma and Boo accessing the location without any problem. I wished in that scenario that it would at least be addressed. But when I say that, I don't mean I wanted Dende to go, Majin Boo entered the temple! It must be the bad air he breathes out of his lungs! Oh, and that time Bluma did it, her rocket fuel had bad air too. Also, it turns out that Carding lost a little bell like 10 years ago. We just never talked about it before. He had a replacement on order, but it hasn't arrived yet because the package guy has to climb the tower, and it's really, really tall. I guess he could have just used a rocket because we've established that rockets work, but oh my me! Majin Boo is killing everybody! Like I said then, I wanted to see the temple's defenses in action. have Boo confront them and then totally break through them. It would be an exciting moment, it would acknowledge they exist, and it would be a natural way to address what could otherwise be a problem. As far as I see it, this is not enough of a problem to begin with. Potara and fusion are, nominally, two different things. It doesn't necessarily follow that what affects one should affect the other. But I think a little more specificity in the reasoning would have gone a long way to avoiding this weird, awkward conversation that goes nowhere, as well as other problems. Say, for example, Vegito lets down the barrier and the earrings magically disintegrate, after which Vegito splits apart. While still justifiably vague, since neither of them would know what's going on, it would be a bit clearer that something about Boo's magic reacts to Potara. And again, it would make even more sense if paired together with what we're about to find out about Boo's connection to the Kaioshin. Since it destroys the object that creates the combination, an object that has nothing to do with fusion, there's no reason to think it would affect Gotenks in the same way. And on top of that, the story wouldn't have to use another Vegeta temper tantrum to justify why Vegito's not coming back. The earrings are already destroyed, so that problem is solved. Just an idea. Anyway, let's rip all these idiots down. Boo de-transforms into his pre-absorption form, and he realizes that something is horribly wrong. Just as Goku and Vegeta find the pod with the fat Boo inside, Boo's consciousness oozes up from the ground to confront them. And I have to say, that is incredibly cool. Goku proves that Vegeta isn't the only one to make bad decisions by blurting out that they can't combine anymore. Goku does suggest fusion to him, which just proves my idea that it's become less like a complex dance that's learned over the course of a week, and more like a topical ointment you can apply at any time. Vegeta, however, has a better idea and threatens to tear down the fat Boo. Boo freaks out, which is a little surprising considering he did not seem to care when he found them staring at that pod immediately after he realized they were ripping pods out. But I do love that Boo states that if they rip out the pod, he won't be himself anymore. It's a tantalizing warning that is going to pay off in a really great way. Vegeta, of course, doesn't listen to anybody, and frankly it actually does seem like the best strategy at this point. He rips the pod out, the Boo proxy oozes back into the floor, and Goku and Vegeta beat a hasty retreat. I think it's awesome they exit through the holes in Boo's head. There's such a fun visual aspect of the character that have always been there, and now they're serving another function. When Vegeta had ripped out the Boo pod, he wondered whether this would cause Majin Buu to become either the fat version or the skinny version, either of which would be advantageous for them. Apparently, he had been watching the whole conflict from the afterlife. Unfortunately, neither seems to be the case. In fact, Majin Buu's ki begins to rise, and for a time he becomes a huge bodybuilder. However, when the dust settles, he's become basically a small, childlike version of what he was after eating the fat Boo. This Boo does not talk, he has little personality, he just wants to destroy. Our Kaioshin is the only one to recognize what this truly is. This is the original form of Boo that Bibidi had created, the pure Boo. And this is going to require so much discussion, it's basically going to take up the entire rest of the episode. Toriyama goes the Frieza route here by claiming what is narratively the final form of the villain is actually its original form. Fair enough. According to Kaioshin, Boo's earlier appearances, particularly the fat form we were introduced to, were influenced by Kaioshin's counterparts that Boo had absorbed. While the northern and western Kaioshin were killed, the southern was absorbed, leading to the briefly seen buff appearance. However, it was the absorption of the rotund, kindly, grand Kaioshin that resulted in the silly, candy-loving Boo from the early parts of the arc. Absorbing those souls made him just docile enough to be somewhat controllable. Apparently it's also what ended up giving him a sense of personal identity, given how terrified he was to lose it. Get all that? Alright, let's dig into this. Once again, I am almost certain that Toriyama is just making this up as he goes along. The Dai Kaioshin's design is made to look like Boo, not the other way around. The fat Boo we're introduced to is the original Boo, and all of this backstory comes later to retroactively alter it. I will say, though, these alterations give Kaioshin's line about never forgetting that horrifying face a far more haunting kind of meaning that works better than it has any right to. For as long as I've been a Dragon Ball fan, I've encountered confusion as to how this de-transformation makes any sense. Wouldn't Vegeta be right? Shouldn't he turn back into this skinny version before he ate the fat Boo? After all, it's the skinny Boo that put the fat Boo in him, and now that's essentially being reversed. I won't deny that this is a result of spontaneous plotting. I mean, I literally just said it. This is probably another one of those big shockers for you. This has actually always made sense to me, and I'm about to defend it. Have I put more thought into it than Toriyama did? Probably. You'll just have to see whether or not you follow me. Majin Boo's fury after the gunmen attack his friends leads to the only time we see multiple Boos at once. I mean, yes, we technically see multiple Boos inside Boo, but they're all contained within the singular actual Boo. And yeah, we also see a whole bunch of tiny Boos, but they only exist momentarily as pieces to perform one specific action. The point is, this is the first time we see two Boos independently existing and at cross purposes. The skinny Boo is created through steam that the fat Boo expels. I've always seen the skinny Boo more as a literal manifestation of anger than a true complete Boo on his own. As in, even after the split, the fat Boo is still Majin Boo, while the skinny Boo is something more akin to a byproduct, which is why he more resembles a hollowed out shell of the Boo he was born from than he does any of the subsequent Boos. The grand Kaioshin form and personality are still dominant. The skinny Boo eating the fat Boo flips the balance of power, suppressing the Grand Kaioshin and making the pure Boo dominant. After all, this form most closely resembles the pure Boo, just bigger and retaining vestiges of the Grand Kaioshin personality. Because that dominance has been re-established, the Boo it represents is no longer a byproduct but its own person. Under that assumption, I think it makes sense that removing the fat Boo from that equation would take him back to his pure form. At worst, I'm filling in the gaps myself. At best, Toriyama is pulling prior narrative and design choices together in a way that fits his new story. I think it's easy to believe that the skinny Boo being a manifested byproduct of Boo's anger and the subsequent absorption already represented a shift in the balance of control, even without the newly added context to link it to. This would just tie it in further. And given that Toriyama clearly models the design of the Grand Kaioshin after the fat Boo, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that there is a purpose in giving these two Boos nearly identical designs to link them in a similar manner. It's the whimsy of Toriyama we're talking about here, so take all that with a pillar of salt, but I think it works. What doesn't make a lot of sense to me, though, is why the Southern Kaioshin is a factor in any of this. Why is that even a thing? Who is he? Why does Boo transform into him for a second? But most importantly, why is that not still a factor? Kaioshin says Boo is returned to his original form because all of his absorptions have been severed from him, but doesn't the Southern Kaioshin blatantly contradict that? I mean, I could accept that he's included as part of the fat package, except that he doesn't physically manifest in any way until after it's been cut out. So, he's still in there? Then why does Boo revert to his pure form if someone's still in there? If he's not in there, why does he become buff at all? I'm assuming the answer could be as simple and possibly as logical as him cycling through remnants of his earlier forms as he regresses. If so, that's begrudgingly tolerable. But why does this even need to be in the story? It has no impact on anything, it just makes things more confusing. I think it's another fake out. It's there to make Boo look intimidating for a few seconds so that what he ultimately becomes looks like a letdown by comparison, so that it can likewise fake us out by being very dangerous. But we don't really need that. I'd buy that Boo's body just fluctuates due to the stress it's under. We don't need to invent a whole other useless character just to explain why Boo looks weird for a few panels when his body is literally collapsing in on itself. I love the idea of Boo losing who he is when the fat Boo is ripped from him. I like the idea of Boo mellowing out because of inadvertently absorbing the personalities of the people he absorbs. I like it a lot more when he becomes a better person through lived experiences, friendship, and compassion. Character development through software patches removes a lot of agency. This doesn't ruin Boo for me. I'd much prefer if Bibidi had created a being that had the potential to become more than what he was designed for, rather than basically getting a virus that facilitated it. But since the absorptions more subtly influence him rather than control his actions, it doesn't undermine it. However, the point seems to be that Toriyama just wants a final villain that does nothing more than provide an opportunity for a fight. Boo's not really a character anymore. He's not only, as he said, been stripped of everything that makes him him, It's being said that's all there ever really was. He's target practice, a video game boss. And as a video game boss, he launches his Earth-destroying nuke. With some timely assistance from Kaioshin, Goku is able to get out with a few of his companions, but the losses are steep. While he has time to save Satan, Dende, and the puppy, they end up leaving behind Gohan, Goten, Trunks, Piccolo, and Tenshinhan. I'm sure that means Chaozu dies too, but are you even surprised no one mentions it? For that matter, Tenshinhan is all but forgotten too. Last seen unconscious. Dende and Satan go after Vegito, but just leave Tenshinhan behind, as if to say, bye scrub. But to be fair, what could Dende really have done? It's not like he's a doctor or anything. Goku saving who he does is definitely a point of contention, one that Vegeta berates him for. It's understandable why his anger allows him to be less than tactful, but I also hear Goku get a lot of flack from fans. Honestly, I kinda like this. It's a split-second moment of action, not a measured and thought-out decision. He does the best he can do. And don't even start with the, oh, but he's faster than the light itself, and blah 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 blah. Even assuming he has the time, which is impossible to tell in the medium of sequential art even if its presentation is totally literal, he's having to make a decision under extreme pressure, where any moment of hesitation might kill them all. This is fine. It's good drama. Vegeta's reaction is unfair but understandable. I can see why a reader's gut reaction would be to be upset if their favorite character just got shafted. I think I've made it clear I'm not pleased with how this arc treats Gohan, Goten, and Trunks, but let's be real here. If they'd made it out, they'd probably end up pulling the time-honored Frieza arc tradition of standing on top of a rocky plateau and providing obvious commentary. I'd prefer all the characters get better use, no question, but I'll settle for scaling the cast back in a logical way in order to tell a better story. This backs Goku and Vegeta into a corner. It's like how the Kame House reunion excluded Yamcha and Tenshinhan. That raised the tension so that Goku would have to team up with Piccolo. Likewise, this forces Goku and Vegeta to take center stage. Since, as I pointed out last week, Goku and Vegeta teaming up feels like a natural direction for this story to go, I can live with this. So with all the pieces now in place, it's time for the final battle. That, however, will be a subject for next year. Our look at the manga concludes here for now because next week it's time to tackle the final movie released during the run of Dragon Ball. It's the whole reason Vegito has such a stupid name, so this had better be worth it. Fusion Reborn, Goku and Vegeta will close out this year's Dragon Ball Dissection December. You can check it out right now if you're a $10 or higher patron. And if you're any level of patron, don't forget that you can win a copy of the massive Akira Toriyama's Manga Theater. There's less than a week to get your entries in, so check out the info in the description if this is all completely new to you. I will see you next time.